Hey everyone, welcome to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And today we have a fun show for you. We're going to be talking about GE's digital unit. We're talking about a bankruptcy in the world of the smart home. Apple's got some HomePod news that we should talk about. We've got a new crazy device for dedicated hardcore smart home people. Some news on cellular modems turning into gateways for the IoT. Lenovo's got a new smart device at the FCC. Control 4 has introduced an intercom function. And we have a new device for our crazy, wacky IoT product of the week. It's something you're gonna want to stay tuned for. Plus, Kevin bought the Lenovo Google Smart Display, and he's going to share his first impressions. My first impression, I want one. This week's podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Netgear, so you're going to hear from them. And our guest this week is Chris Smith, who is VP of Service Innovation at Otis Elevators. We're going to be talking about how to build a connected elevator, and he answers the big question we've always wanted to know, which is, oh my gosh, does pressing the door close button actually work? All of this and more in this week's show. Let's get it started with a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Affero. Looking for an IoT platform? Find out why Kenmore and D-Link picked Affero. Affero customers have experienced as much as an 80% reduction in time to market, 99% fewer support calls, and 10x higher activation rates. Plus, they can reuse 90% of their work from one project to the next. To learn more, visit affero.io. That's AFERO.io. All right, Kevin, the big news this week comes, I'm going to say, for the enterprise and industrial side, which is the Wall Street Journal reported that GE was considering selling off some of its digital businesses. The proposals here are ServiceMax business, which helps get service personnel and installers and people to fix stuff out into the field, manages those employees. Their Predix business might also be on the block. That's their time series database, analytics, and all sorts of good stuff that they've been marketing for a really long time for the industrial IoT. And a couple other acquisitions they made, such as Meridium, which was a audio analytics company that does kind of predictive analytics, like to predict when machines fail. So there's a lot happening here, and we haven't talked much about it, but GE for the last year or so has really been, struggling is not the right word. Coming to grips with a new reality might be a good way of putting it, but basically they're like all of that marketing dollars, and they spent a lot on digital transformation. It was just too rich for their blood, and basically they're slimming down, they're selling off all kinds of divisions. And it's not a huge surprise, but it is a sad thing because GE really created the industrial IoT, not in actuality, but in terms of marketing. Probably 4 years ago, they were like, yeah, we're going to spend billions on this. And by God, they did.
They did. And I think it was like 2015, so maybe it was 3-ish years ago. But they said they want to be like a top 10 software company. And
they got close. They actually they didn't get close to being a top 10 software company, but they had a huge software business. Right.
But the thing is, and this is interesting, the Eclipse Foundation had a little study for cloud services. Do you plan to use, or any of the following cloud service offerings for implementing your IoT solution was the question. And of course, AWS is right up there, Azure, private on-premises cloud, and Google Cloud were the top 4. And like by a vast majority, the very last one with a 2.1% choice was GE Predix.
And that was probably internal GE customers because they did use Predix for themselves. Well, in GE, they learned a lot of things the hard way. Like they started building their own data centers to host the Predix analytics stuff. Yeah. And everybody was like, GE, don't be Amazon, don't be Microsoft.
No, that's a reinvention of the wheel at this point as well.
And then they also were very ambitious in terms of hiring people to sell this. So I don't think it was a mistake because I think there's a lot of there, but I do think it was a bit early. And they spent a lot of money on the marketing side that they couldn't necessarily back up on the other side, on the product side. Now, the really interesting thing, if they sell this stuff and still we're not sure. They just said they were selling digital assets and it's not clear which ones they're going to sell. But if they sold something like Predix, I think it'd be interesting. Who the heck's going to buy Predix? It's a good platform. So would you want to see a Microsoft or someone come in that deep, I don't think they'd want to. But, this is what I think I'm going to explore this week in my newsletter. So
I'd be curious because the people that come to mind, there would be some overlap there, but I'll be curious what you deduce.
What my deductions and massive brain say? No. Okay. In other sad news for the Internet of Things. Oh man, it's like everything's coming home to roost. Way back in 2014, I wrote about a company that I just loved. It was called, the device was called Mother. The company was called Sense, and that's SEN.SE. This was a French design company, and they put out a smart home hub called the Mother, and then they put out little sensors called peanuts that you basically program to be like a sleep detector or a motion detector or any number of things. And I loved this system. I thought it didn't give me the programmability because I was super nerdy and I was like the smart things person back then. I was like, I love spending time tweaking these things, making these weird recipes to do weird stuff in my house. But for everybody else, this was a really well-designed, pretty, and cute device. And sadly, this company is now bankrupt.
Yeah, the little Mother unit looks like a little squash bowling pin, but it also reminds me of the current Google Home in some regard. It was a cute product.
Yeah, and I loved the fact that these things where you could buy these peanuts and program them, basically. You flash them so they have the algorithms they need to do, like track sleep or track steps. And they worked really well. I even remember putting one through the wash and it still worked. So, yeah. So if you have that product, I don't know what to tell you. You might not have it working for much longer.
What did that cost back in the day? I'm trying to think.
It cost, I think,
$300-ish.
Hold on. It cost $299. And I should tell you that the creator of this system we're going back in IoT history. He's the guy who found the Nabats tag. I don't know how to say this. It was a connected rabbit and it just glowed different colors and people loved it. So yeah.
Bye-bye, Mother.
Bye-bye, Mother. So there we go. And I still to this day would like just a sensor that I could just stick on top of like my dog food container and just have it be like, has anyone fed the dog? I want it to tie into Madame A, but that's just me. Okay, so that was our sad news segment of the show. Let's talk about
Happy news. Yeah. We don't talk about HomePod that much. Why is that?
Because it's not good.
Okay, then. That settles that. There just hasn't been much in the way of development lately. I mean, with the AirPlay 2 was announced maybe a month ago. But the latest iOS 12 beta version 5, which I have not upgraded to yet. However, it includes the ability, or at least the setup ability, to use the HomePod to make phone calls. So this has to do with the way Apple uses continuity. That's the function where you can spread data and activities around on different iOS devices. So you can pick up a phone call on pretty much any iOS device because it's tied to your iPhone and so on. So that will come in HomePod with probably iOS 12. I think that's a fair bet. Really, it's kind of table stakes to do this kind of stuff. So I think they're a little late here, but it's coming. So that's good. Nothing else to talk about though, because nothing else has happened with HomePod. Yeah.
And Apple didn't really talk about it.
And Apple just had their quarterly investor call and, report this week. And HomePod is lumped in with their other category, which also includes their earphones, their watches, etc. That's a growing segment. They did talk about how strong those products are for the other category. Not a peep of HomePod. Not it's growing, not it's meeting our expectations. Zippo. Nothing.
So read into that what you will. Okay, guys, we're here. There's going to be like 100 of you, maybe more, I don't know, who are going to find this interesting. But it is heavy duty, but very specific, and it's going to be really interesting to you guys, so we're telling you about it. There is a company called, it's either Machinon, or Kevin, you want to go with the pronunciation?
No, I'm going to go with one of those two. I'll say Machinon.
Machinon? All right, you're voting for Machinon. This is a device that has many inputs, and you pop it onto a Pi, and you can control your smart home. And these are for devices that you actually, it looks like you wire them into it. So it's like maybe you want to create like a special breaker box to measure electricity consumption in your house, or you want to tie into some appliance somewhere. This is too hardcore for either of us, I think. But
I would agree.
If you are a double E or just really into this stuff, this may be perfect for you. And is it out yet?
I don't believe it is out yet. What you can do is you can sign up and say you're interested on the website, which is macanon.com. We should put that in the show notes because I don't want to have people type it based on our pronunciations, which could be wrong. So it's not available yet. Yeah, it's built on a lot of open source code, Raspberry Pi ready, 46 input outputs. You're right, though. You're going to be hardwiring a lot of stuff.
But if you're that kind of guy or girl, this might be a great product for you. So check it out. If so far we haven't scared you off, you're like, I don't know. We'll do a lot, but we're not going to do that.
You know, I'm thinking about you wouldn't have to hardwire a lot of things because your Pi is going to have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And I'm only saying that because now that I look at the web interface for this, which actually looks very pretty in terms of controlling things, you know, they've got a light as one of the switches and there's temperature sensors, and you're not going to hardwire everything in your house to this one little box. So there should be wireless connectivity through the Pi.
Got it. Okay. But there is the option for wires should you want to stick them in.
Oh, yes, there is. I mean, you can, there's analog inputs that you can configure for all kinds of currents and resolutions. Oh my, yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Check it out. If you're interested, sign up, and if you get it, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
All right. This is for the industrial people out there. Your cellular modems are now gateways. Sierra Wireless just introduced the AirLink LX40, and you don't need to remember that specifically, but the idea behind this line of products from Sierra is that you get the cellular modem, and you also get a gateway as part of this, and that will handle things like analytics of the information coming in. So basically, you don't have to send every piece of data up to the cloud, which is important when you're on a cellular connection because, by God, that bandwidth is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that we talk about this in the home, like, why aren't our routers also home hubs? Well, in the case of the enterprise world, your routers are indeed not home hubs, but enterprise hubs that can do some fairly reasonable computing. And seems good to me.
Yeah, I mean, if it can save on bandwidth costs on a cellular connection, that can be a lot of money depending on how many devices you have implemented and so on and so forth. See, it supports LTE-M and NB-IoT, both. So that's good. Power over Ethernet.
Yeah, lots of good stuff there. Very nice. Okay. And this is in the what the heck category. Kevin, in his search, his regular perusal of the FCC database, found...
But wait a second. Oh. No. You make it sound like nobody else checks the FCC database 2 or 3 times a day.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
I mean, am I the only one?
I only check mine like once every 2 days.
Surely there are other people who check it more than I do, but you're right. And you were going to say I found a Lenovo smart bulb. And when I found it, I'm like, who? I mean, I know Lenovo. They make phones, computers, and so on and so forth. But a smart bulb? And I checked, I could not find a single Lenovo IoT product. And maybe I just didn't look hard enough, but this appears to be their first foot in the door, I guess, of the smart home. Yeah. It's a Wi-Fi enabled smart home. And I only know that because the FCC tested the 802.11b, G, and N radio protocols on it. So I guess it's exciting for Lenovo, but not really for the rest of us, is it?
I saw this and I was like, why a smart bulb?
Yeah.
Why? I don't know why this is everyone's intro product. If I were doing an intro product for the IoT One, I probably would do something highly specific just because, and try to integrate it with others because we're so far into the system now. But if I were going to be like a computing giant who's like, I'm getting into this game, I would do a smart outlet because they're so much more versatile and because, smart bulb. Nah.
I mean, anyway. I'll keep looking. Maybe they have a suite of products that are coming. I don't know. I mean, this has not been announced yet, so I should be clear on that.
Maybe today's perusal will indicate that, they've got an outlet and a hub and Lord only knows what else.
I don't know, but I will keep looking.
There we go. This is not DIY, but in the world of Control 4, which is kind of the fancier, higher-end connected home stuff, we have, they introduced an intercom feature. And I thought this was interesting because it basically turns your Control 4 system, if you have it, any touch panel that you have turns into a potential screen that you can talk to from your smartphone, and you can also see video clips like from your connected doorbell. So I thought this was interesting for anyone who has these systems. And I also went to a dealer to actually check out the Control4 system because they have launched with their dealers a very comprehensive smart home showroom. So if you have one of those fancy high-end home automation dealerships, pop in and check out the Control4 stuff because they've created a really compelling kind of system. And it's actually cheaper than I thought it would be. So for basics. And yes, this is different. You're buying it all at once and someone's going to install it. And then, there's, I think for the intercom, it's part of like a $100 a year service fee. But if you're like many people and you're like, I do not want to program my smart home. I do not want to install all this stuff. It's not an unreasonable thing to do. So I don't know.
I'm taking a guess here that this intercom, you said you can use your phone and communicate to one of the panels. I'm guessing you got to be on the same Wi-Fi network.
No, you can actually do it from your phone when you're remote.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because that to me would be a cool feature. So I could be, at work somewhere and intercom back to my house and talk to my wife.
It's basically the same way I have used the Echo Show with my daughter when I'm traveling, and the way you might use Google's Duo program on your brand new fancy device that we will talk about in a few moments.
What's Duo?
Oh.
Sorry.
Duo? So, actually, this gives us a choice, Kevin. Should we talk about your new product that you just bought? Or should we talk about the silliest IoT product of the week? Should we keep them in suspense a little longer?
Yeah, let's keep them in suspense.
All righty.
Let's keep them in suspense.
Let's talk about your first impressions of the Lenovo Smart Display.
All right. So I ordered the Lenovo Smart Display, the 10-inch one. There's also an 8-inch version late last week when it was first available. And I'm going to say, if you haven't ordered one yet and you're a Costco member, take a look at Costco because I paid $199 for the larger one, which everywhere else, that's the price for the smaller one. Normally it's $249.99. So $50 savings right there. It arrived about 36 hours ago, so I've got some more testing to do, but my first impressions, remember, Stacey, when you and I saw this at CES in January and we pretty much fell in love with it right away?
Yes.
All those feelings came back right away.
Oh, you didn't regret your feelings?
Not at all. Not at all. I am super impressed so far with it. Very easy to set up. You do all the setup with your phone through the Google Home app. You don't have to enter a Wi-Fi password. It's just a code here or there. It's very, very easy to set up. And display is fantastic. It's I'm pretty sure it's a full HD display on the larger one, but it's a 720p display on the smaller one. So you get a better resolution on the large one. The speaker, because I know a lot of people are going to want to know, I'd say it's better than the standalone Google Home, but it's not going to compete with a HomePod or a Sonos. It gets loud like those, but the bass is just not going to be there. It's more skewed towards the higher end of the sound. I don't see any microphones on this thing, but obviously it's got a microphone array. The one thing I've noticed, this is really meant to be facing in towards the center of a room, so to speak. Like I put this on the nightstand in the bedroom. We'll talk about that in a minute because most people would not put a product like this there, but I'll explain why you can. It's a screen. It's not something that can sit in the middle of the room because you can't see it then from the other side, right?
Yeah, this is the same issue we have with the Echo Show. We just kind of turn it around with our hands as needed.
Well, I will say, though, I've got it angled on the corner of the nightstand facing into the center of the room, and it's been pretty good about listening. But obviously, I'm not behind it, so that helps. Obviously, it's built in with Google Assistant. Some of the features are cool, like Netflix is actually built in, so I can just say, hey G, play such and such on Netflix, and boom, it just starts playing on there. It's awesome.
What about my corgi videos on YouTube?
Actually, YouTube is also built in, so that would work. What's not built in, but still works, is YouTube TV, which is, I've switched my service providers now from PlayStation Vue to YouTube TV. However, the Smart Display is a Chromecast, basically. It's a receiver. So anything you can Chromecast to a Chromecast, you could send to this. So I did that with my phone, Chromecasted YouTube TV, was watching the news, and then I thought, I wonder if I can voice control it. So I said, hey G, change to channel 10 on YouTube TV. Sure enough, it did it. So even though YouTube TV is not built in and other services are not yet built in, once it's casting, you can voice control it just like it was natively there.
That's awesome. Now, this is really niche, but I'm very curious. I have many photos on Google Photos. Mm-hmm. Is it possible for me to set that up like in its spare time when it's not being used for, corgi videos in my house? Could I actually just have it run through my Google Photos?
You absolutely could, because there are 3 options for the display when you're not using it, when it's in like standby mode. I'm just using the base clock display because at night, in the middle of the night, I want to see the clock. I don't want to see anything else. But another one is Google Photos. And then I think the third one is just kind of like what you'd have on a Chromecast, like a backdrop feature where Google just provides photos.
Nice. Okay. Yes. Now, let's talk about the Nest integration.
Let's talk about that. So, I haven't tested everything, but I would say anything that integrates today with Google Home should certainly work with this display, and that includes video streaming. I know somebody on Facebook asked us if he could stream Ring and Wyze cameras to this. You can't, because they don't integrate with Google Home today. It's a problem with the platform, not with this product, if that makes sense.
It does, and it's possible they'll get there.
Yep. But I did test Nest, my Nest Hello doorbell camera, and just, say, hey, G, show my front door, because that's the name of the camera. And what did you say, about 6-7 seconds of latency from the time I asked it to the time it actually showed it?
Yes, we got a few seconds, like maybe 2 seconds of like after you asked, where it's like sending it to the cloud and thinking about it. Okay. And then you get maybe 4 seconds of spinning while it pulls up the thing.
Right.
And that's on the same Wi-Fi network, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's not instant. It's probably the same performance as I see with my NVIDIA Shield TV. When I'm watching TV, I can just voice command it because that's a Chromecast as well.
Well, and you can also pull up, was that your Nest cam?
That was the Nest doorbell.
Okay. So
I have another Nest camera, but I didn't test that.
Okay.
I just presumed it would work because the one did.
We never assume in the IoT world.
Well, see, part of my testing challenge now is I got to do a little homework. We've been so dependent on Amazon for controlling the home that I really never set up the rooms and devices in Google Home very well. So now I need to do that.
So part 2 will be more in depth on how the Google Home works with the videos thing, which is fine. So today, buy, not buy, who should buy?
Let's put it this way. If you're already into the Google platform for your voice user interface with your smart home, I think this is great. If you have a place for it. Yes, it could be in the kitchen where you can do recipes and other things, or you want to watch YouTube or TV in the kitchen. We put it on the nightstand. And as I said, we normally don't put things like this in the bedroom. And I say things like this, meaning it has a camera.
Yes, I was going to tell people. I'm like, if you don't know, it does have a camera. Because Kevin actually, now with this, I could call Kevin on Duo and it just like pops up.
Right. In fact, I said, hey, G, call Stacy, and it says video call or voice call. And I just say video, and it called you on Duo. The device is typically best in landscape. The only thing that works in portrait mode, because you can switch this device as kind of like a dual stand, the only thing that works in portrait mode is Duo. You can't have this set up to use in portrait all the time. And when I did do that, you said my video got a lot better. I wasn't like stretched.
You're a little wider than you normally are.
Yeah, which may be a good thing. Yeah. But anyway, going back to the camera itself, there is a hardware built-in switch, a shutter cover built into this device. You just flip it down and there's a little red indicator on it that says, hey, I've covered up the camera right now, So, and in fact, the device itself will say the camera is now off. Just like if you muted the microphone, it will say the microphone is now off. So
I'm buying it. All right. Well,
it's just real quick. It's touchscreen too. We've been talking about all the voice stuff, but you can navigate through touch. Like when it said, do you want to call video or voice? I could have tapped the screen. So there's a lot to this product. It's so far, I am loving it.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to get mine. And we'll come back to you in a week or two and check in on the home performance aspects of this. And I'm sure you'll write something up at some point in time.
That was an assignment.
That was an assignment, yes. Okay. And let's see. Oh, Kevin. Good pro tip from you, and then we'll get into our crazy idea.
All right. So it's funny because before the show, Stacy, you're not at your home. You're away right now. And you had said, my hub at home is not responding. It's so funny you brought that up because I was going to share this pro tip. What do you do if you can't access your hub, remotely? Maybe it needs to be rebooted, et cetera, et cetera. And on the Wink Facebook page, people had talked about this. And the first thing people said was, plug your hub into a Wi-Fi smart outlet. And I never thought of that, but it's brilliant because you can remotely access that outlet to reboot the hub.
Yes. And I've talked to people who actually have their routers plugged into a smart outlet and they actually schedule so it just power cycles through at like 2 a.m. one night a week. So,
brilliant.
Hey, good idea. Okay, let's talk about I'm calling this my silly IoT product idea of the week. Kevin, you're actually into this.
I am. Are you ready? Let's get naked.
Oy.
Not you and me. Not listeners. The product is called the Naked Home Body Scanner. But it's not what you think. You don't get naked on this. You still can wear clothes, although it's probably best to wear minimal clothes, maybe underwear or whatever. It is a scale that you step on, as well as a mirror that has at the top of it one of Intel's ProSense sensors. The RealSense sensors for 3D depth. And the scale actually rotates you 360 degrees while the sensor checks you out.
You're on a turntable, basically?
Yeah.
Oh, this is
You have
terrible.
to. How else would it get your 3D body composition? I mean, I guess the mirror could go around you, but no you stand there.
A depth sensor could still do it. But okay. So I'm on this turntable in my skivvies, and this is the worst part. Go, Kevin.
And it basically uses the infrared sensor to scan you. And it then will create a 3D map or model in a connected app to show you what you look like. And it does body fat composition, weight.
It measures your thighs and your body parts.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that's the whole point of it, is to measure. And then the idea is it's for healthy living. And as you transform your body by living healthier, you get a better sense of your progress. And I think that's actually great. I don't know if I would pay $1,400 for it, but whatever. You actually raised a good point before the show, what this isn't used for, but should be used for. And I love this idea.
Yes, this is the only reason I would ever shame myself into getting on a turning table that would measure my body fat composition, which is if you could use this to actually send those measurements to like a shopping excursion. So like to Amazon or to Nordstrom's, and then they'd be like, oh, well, in the following brands, you're a size 4, and in the other brands, you're a size 8. And that would be amazing, because then you could like buy things online and actually try it on virtually, and it would actually be accurate, as opposed to now when you're just like, I'll buy 2 in different sizes and send 1 or both back.
I wonder if that infrared scanner could actually do that. Could it detect and measure you, so to speak, convert it into inches and so on for sizing?
Yeah, judging by what it offers now, I think for sure. So yes.
I guess. Just because you're going to stand on this little turntable and you may place it further or away each and every time. And it's going to have to, it can measure the depth, I guess. So yeah, I guess it could work.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to tell me the measure, because it says it offers you measurements of like your biceps and your waist and your hips and all of those other body parts. I'd
say abs, but I only have one. I have an ab.
You have an ab. You've got to at least have 2, one on each side. But yeah, so that is our crazy product of the week. If you have $1,400 and no dignity, you go right ahead, just like Kevin's going to.
And let us know. I'd be curious to see how it works for somebody. I don't know if we could ever get a review into this, and I'm not putting naked pictures of my...
I'm not putting naked pictures of you models. Anywhere.
I don't blame you. They're not pictures. It's kind of like bringing the TSA security scans to your house, but for health,
It's enough. I wouldn't want to see those.
All right.
All right. Let's go now to our question of the week. And also, it is the end of July, which means we have a winner. So as you guys know, our IoT listener hotline is sponsored by Schlage, and Eric was this month's winner for the Schlage Sense Smart Deadbolt and Wi-Fi adapter. So Eric, yay for you. And the rest of you guys, just because you didn't win this month, do not despair. We are running the same contest again for the month of August. I do have some more rules. Anyone can enter, but you can only win if you are in the US or Canada. So I'm sorry, Europe. Je suis désolé, Europe. And I don't know how to say it in other languages, but that was good enough. Okay, so let's see. This week's voicemail is from Dan, and he has a question that we actually can answer in part.
Hi, Stacy and Kevin. This is Dan from North Carolina. I'm hoping you can help me with an idea I have for using my Wise cams. I'm pretty mainstream on the smart home. I use smart things to control lights and a few other things in my house. And I bought a few Wise cams recently because of the great $20 price point. There is not a Wise cam to smart things integration yet, but both of those systems do have IFT integrations. I want to use the motion sensor on the Wise cam to trigger a SmartThings connected light to turn on. But I can't figure out how to do it, and I don't see an IFT applet that does it. Can IFT bridge this gap for me? And if so, can you explain how I do it? And as a side note, assuming that there is a way to do it, I wonder if there's a way for the light to then turn off after a few minutes. Thanks again, guys. Love your show. Bye-bye.
Okay, Dan, I have good news. I have mostly good news for you.
Yeah.
Which is we can actually do this. So the way you would do this is you would go to IFT, and I went to IFT and saw and looked up WISE. So the WISE motion is a trigger. So when it senses motion, we can trigger something to happen. And in this case, we can trigger a SmartThings device to turn on. So this is very easy for you to make yourself. And if you're having troubles, just email us and I'll make an applet for you and send it to you. But you basically turn on your light. We can't get it to turn off after a few minutes. So that is the limitation of IFT at the moment, which...
It would be nice if you could say, after no motion detected for 5 minutes, et cetera, turn it off. But I don't see any trigger event for that.
No. So you could try, and I went into SmartThings to see if they have apps in SmartThings that you could use since WISE is not supported yet by SmartThings. That doesn't work. Now, it's possible that you could create an app in SmartThings for, let's say it's your porch light that turns on. If the porch light has been on for more than 10 minutes after a certain time, you could create a SmartThings app that would turn that off. So then you're looking at creating an IFT applet and then a SmartThings app.
Some automation, right.
So that's...
You know what? This is an interesting use of the WISE cam or any camera that has motion detection. And I guess that Dan's trying to do this in a sense because the WISE cams are so darn cheap. I mean, it's $20 because what you could do, just throwing another alternative out there, buy a motion detector, motion sensor that works with SmartThings. I don't know. What did you say they would cost?
$40.
Probably $40. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it'd probably be like a Z-Wave and just use that because then you could actually have not just the light turn on, but you could probably set it to turn off as well.
Yes.
That's pretty typical fare for a motion sensor.
Yes, but it is going to be more than a WISE cam. Because,
it is.
Basically everything is more than a WISE cam. I feel like I've bought cups of coffee and sandwiches that are more than the WISE cam. It's really ridiculous. So, that is our answer for you. And if you have a question for the IoT podcast listener hotline, you can call us at 512-623-7424. And I have to tell you again, the podcast hotline is brought to you by Schlage, and don't miss your chance to win a Schlage Sense Smart Deadbolt and Wi-Fi adapter for the month of August. To enter to win, you just have to call and leave us a question. The end of August, we will draw a name if you are from the US or Canada, and we will reach out to you and give you the information. So just think, smarter homes start with Schlage. And that concludes this portion of the show. Stay tuned for a message from our sponsor, Netgear, and an interview with Chris Smith from Otis Elevators. He shares their story about building a predictive algorithm for the elevator, what went wrong, what eventually went right, and he tells us if the door close button actually works on these things. Stay tuned for that. Hey everyone, we are taking a break from this week's Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Netgear, and I have John McHugh, who is a Senior Vice President of Commercial Networking at Netgear. Most of us know what Netgear is, but do you want to give us a short summary?
A lot of people do know Netgear, but they don't know that actually we have a very important strategic role in commercial networking for small businesses, especially for kind of do-it-yourself business owners and small office, home office businesses.
And before this, we were talking, and you said that networking needs to change for the Internet of Things. Can you talk about what you mean by that?
Yeah, it's so funny because the Internet of Things runs over networking. And the ironic part of this whole thing is networking hasn't changed in the last 10, 15 years. And it's not taking advantage of all the power and potential that is brought with good Internet of Things implementation.
What does that mean for Netgear and how you guys design your products?
Like I said, all networking devices, by definition, are connected to the network. And so hence, they can be connected to the internet as well and be IoT things. But nobody designed them to do that. In fact, there are two things that really, I think, make an Internet of Things device. One is that its user interface has been connected to the cloud and is remotely accessible. It draws on the internet to do really much more advanced user experience capabilities. And the other thing is that it immediately can find the cloud and get connected to the cloud in a secure in a reliable manner. And those two things haven't really been addressed by networking products until today.
And so when you guys were designing your products, how did you implement a better user experience and this idea of finding the cloud?
And that was exactly what we started out to do, because we looked at other people that were kind of doing Internet of Things, networking, sort of connected, and where they made their mistakes. And there was two things that jumped off the page to us. One was a bunch of cloud-connected network devices don't work at all without the cloud. Well, guess what? People's internet goes up and down, and especially small business owners, there's a lot of complexity of getting something up and running that doesn't just turn on and run for you. So the first thing about our Insight cloud-connected solutions is when you turn them on, they run exactly the way existing products do. The other thing that we wanted to make extremely easy was for this thing to automatically home to the cloud and get you connected without local servers or cloud keys or weird things you had to put on your network. You just discover the device with an app on your phone, and boom, you're connected to the cloud, you're connected to that device. Those were the two things we really wanted to do differently.
Okay, sounds good. Where can we go to find out more about Netgear's Insight line?
At www.netgear.com/insight.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Chris Smith, who is VP of Service Innovation at the Otis Elevator Company. Hi Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stacey. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I am super excited because elevators, they're like the thing that allowed us to build skyscrapers. Actually, steel was that, but then we also needed elevators too. So a lot of debt to you guys. So you guys are now doing connected elevators. And you were very clear to tell me that you've actually been doing this for 30 years. So tell me a little bit about the role of communication in elevators.
Sure. So, 30 years ago when we transitioned from older relay logic technology to microprocessors, it was a big change for our mechanics in the field. And the mechanics needed some help. Literally, instead of tracing wiring diagrams, there was this black box, a PC board that had all the information in it. So our engineers said, you know what, in order to support those mechanics, let's come up with a way to remotely connect into an elevator using a proprietary homegrown REM system. We called it REM, Remote Elevator Monitoring, and analog phone lines. So we would dial in and help troubleshoot. The information that came off of it was designed to be read by a very senior, experienced engineer, and it was for them to help and kind of then translate back to the mechanic on, hey, this is what the issue is, this is how you fix it. So for 30 years, we've been doing that and evolving that technology. And then, of course, some new technologies came along called the Internet of Things and Industry 4.0, and we said we need to do this a different way, and that's where we are today.
And so now you have this product called Otis One, and you still use microprocessors. So what exactly has changed? You're swapping out your analog phone lines for
cellular initially. We eventually, if a customer wants to give us a landline or Wi-Fi, which a lot of customers are not too comfortable with just yet in their buildings, we will use that. But initially, our initial product is with cellular, and we're not building this ourselves. We're partnering with other companies, some of which I could tell you about and others which I can't right now. But we then take the data off the elevator, put it through a gateway, do some edge computing with some of the data, though that which we need, we process, and then we send it to the Azure cloud. One of our partners is Microsoft. And of course, once it's in the cloud, that's where you can do all your big data analytic and get all these different insights, which before it was for that engineer, but now it's insights that we can give it directly to our customers. We give it directly to our mechanics, who obviously are supporting our customers, and to anyone else supporting that end user, the passenger. You can even start connecting the elevator in ways that can support the passenger. So it's done in a very different way with partners and through cellular connections.
Okay, we're going to dig into all of that. It's an ambitious project to do, but what does this enable your customers to do? What are they excited about when you offer them this?
Yeah, so our customers actually have, we've done extensive research over the years, and it's very consistent. Customers tell us they want predictive, proactive, and transparency. Predictive, that's the first thing. And everyone's heard about it. Hey, I don't want things to break. I want my elevators to be up and running. We call that uptime. So that's the first thing we can do with that. So elevators are the outside doors, which most of us see. They actually cause up to 70% of all shutdowns. So one of the advantages of doing this for 30 years, connecting elevators, is we have a lot of data on elevator shutdowns. And so we did the Pareto chart and said, okay, if you're going to concentrate your efforts, what do you do first? And we said, okay, let's go after these door calls. How do we prevent door calls? And so we took all this data and working with vendors, and we have a research center called United Technologies Research Center, a bunch of really smart PhDs. We came up with an algorithm that helps us predict when elevator maintenance should be done. And actually, it was an interesting journey. When we started this predictive solution, we were trying to figure out exactly when the elevator would shut down. And quite frankly, it wasn't very successful. What we were able to then do is when we went to our research center, they said, you're looking at the problem the wrong way. You really can't predict, like your doctor can't predict, you have 27 years and 3 months to live, but the doctor can predict your health. Like, hey, your health, your numbers are going up or down and keep doing this, change this. And that's what we were able to do with these algorithms is we predict the health of the elevator door system and therefore can time when to send the mechanic to get there to do the preventive maintenance to prevent the shutdown.
Oh, that's actually a really interesting point. So instead of saying when it's going to break down, it's not feasible necessarily. Is it not feasible?
Well, at least for doors, we weren't too successful at it. So
Okay.
when we shifted that mindset, again, I don't want to say we can't get there someday, but now it's within ranges. We know below a certain score, because we score it, we say that's now in the yellow category, and we should get out there within the next 21 days. And when it goes red, we're like, oh no, now we need to get out there within the next 3 to 5 days. So it's not as we were trying to get it really precise, and that wasn't that successful. But when we talked health and trending health, that's when we started seeing some great results.
Okay, just help me out here. How many factors are there in an elevator door closing that play into this? How many?
Well, dozens and dozens, because the elevator doors ride on a sill. You might see that when you walk across and there's ridges in it. And so there's called gibs that keep the elevator in the sill, and that sill can get dirt in it, which has nothing to do with the elevator maintenance, right? It has to do how much dirt is being tracked into the building. Was there a contractor in the building? The elevator doors run on rollers, and the rollers, again, it's on a track. And again, dirt and debris, an elevator shaft is similar to a chimney. So everything, where's the building located? What time of year is it? Where's the front door? Where when the front door is open, is all this wind coming in and going up the chimney? So therefore, job site conditions are critical. Time of year is critical. What's going on in the building? So, we will see, you don't see a nice smooth trend of like, well, office building A and office building B, they're both 3 stories. We should see the same trends. No, it all depends on all those various factors, which you have to build into the algorithm.
So now we talked about for your customers, what does connecting your elevators in this fashion do for you guys?
Oh, so ultimately, when the customers say, I want predictive, I want proactive and transparent, obviously, if we can keep our customers informed and give them all those 3 things, they don't want to leave, right? So they want to stay with us. And Otis, you're doing a great job. I will continue under a maintenance agreement and continue having us service you. It's a competitive industry. Otis has a good product with a good reputation, and competitors would love to have our products. And so then you start getting into a price game unless you can show them like, well, why would I leave for a few dollars because Otis is providing excellent service for me?
And we should point out for people that while you might buy an Otis elevator and put it in your building, over the years, you also have the choice of choosing contractors to maintain it that may not be Otis. It's not
correct.
Some people might think, oh, there's clearly lock-in. You don't rip out your elevators every day.
Yeah, Stacey, if I had a nickel for every time someone said to me, you don't have any competition, do you? You're the only elevator company, I'd be very rich. No, we have plenty of competition, and people do want our elevators on maintenance. And quite frankly, we'll maintain anyone else's elevator as well.
Okay, so continuing on with your benefits to you guys.
So the other key benefit to us is we can start scheduling more proactively. So in my example earlier, we turned a reactive Murphy's Law situation where it's Murphy's Law for our mechanic. I was just in the middle of doing a detailed maintenance routine at this one building, and then I got a service call. And now I have to leave, pack up my tools, and drive. And driving is the most unproductive time you can have, and get to this next building and maintain the elevator. So obviously now when we could say, no, we think in the next 5 to 7 days, 21 days, this elevator A in this building is going to shut down to the doors, we can now schedule that and put it into his maintenance routine when he's going to still be there. So think about it. The customer was going to have a shutdown. They were going to have someone come and look at the shutdown and do the maintenance routine on the doors, but it was going to be after a very painful event. Now they're still getting that same service, but they're getting it proactively, and we can put it into a nice maintenance schedule as opposed to being reactive. So it's just more efficient.
What metrics are you implementing to account for things that don't break down? Because it's really hard as we start making things more efficient It's harder to say, hey, this terrible thing didn't happen, and that was because of us, right? Because people don't notice that.
Exactly. And so that's where the transparency comes in place. What we're doing is we're sharing with the customers on a customer portal. We're sharing with them their health scores of their elevators to show them. And then when we do a proactive visit as opposed to reactive, we also showing them that as well. Hey, we came and did maintenance, and it was because your elevator door health was trending negative, and therefore your maintenance is being done. Before, we only shared with them, hey, we did a callback, and we only shared kind of the bad news, right? So now we're sharing the bad news and the good news. And so that let them say, wow, you guys I do have 99.9% uptime, which is great, but there's a reason for it, right? Instead of just, it's dumb luck. It's because I can see the maintenance you're doing and the timing that you're doing it, and my building isn't as inconvenienced. Our customers tell us, if you could eliminate one thing for us, eliminate all shutdown. That's the number one thing, eliminate all shutdown.
Okay, this overarching trend here, I see it in my connected devices. I see it in industrial. It really relies a lot on people having trust with their vendors, because I can see a lot of people being like, what is this? Oh, you came out and did this. Rah, rah, rah. Is that what I'm paying you for? Like feeling like you're padding your numbers, because people were kind of curmudgeons that way, right? So
exactly.
Transparency is key, but how do you think other companies trying to do this sort of thing can help create that trust with their customer that they're actually not trying to pad their bills or, insert some sort of negative association here?
Yeah, I think the other key thing is to share with the customer the line of sight of where they will have to invest. Most mechanical systems will not last forever, right? Elevators will not last. Even the building's now 100 years old, the original elevator, it needs to be upgraded, right? There's new needs in the building. They need to move people faster in the building. So they're going to have to upgrade the machines to make it faster and the brains to make it move faster. So when you can give, and it all goes a little bit back to transparency, but give that customer, because of the data you're getting, usage information like your car. Hey, my tires are going to last so many miles between an oil change. That's the same thing. You have to start giving that customer that line of sight that these customers understand, hey, I know eventually I have to invest. I know I'm going to have to change my roof, right? I know. So here, with data, you're going to get another 100,000 trips out of that door operator before it's going to have to be upgraded. And that upgrade is going to cost this much, and it's 3 years out. So why don't you start putting away some capital dollars to fix that? And, the next thing that's going to go is your machine, but that can last 1 million trips, and you're so many trips out from that. So start investing this money or putting it aside. I think that's where then you truly are a trusted partner, because they hate surprises, right? No one wants to hear, hey, guess what? You have to spend $20,000 on this system. And it was like, we didn't budget that. Well, sorry, but you need to do it.
That's true. Okay, that's a good point. I like that. Okay, and finally, what is this offer to, I'll call them, I don't know what to call them, the people who ride in the elevator, the people who are waiting for elevators? Is there anything that you could build off of your one platform to offer them?
Yeah. So, it's interesting, and that's the passenger experience. We are talking a lot about it, and our customers are talking about it. How do we improve the passenger experience? Can you make it seamless? I don't have to present my security badge and then go up and identify myself, then pick which elevator I'm going to go into. So I can check myself into the building using my phone, which then knows that it's 8 o'clock in the morning and I work on the 12th floor. And it therefore seamlessly assigns me the elevator to get onto. So that kind of seamless passenger experience is important. Elevators are an awkward space, right? People don't know where to look, where to turn. Should I talk to somebody who I know, but there's 3 other people in the elevator? And so giving them some infotainment in the elevator cab, music, different things like that. We actually have experimented with what we're calling a talking elevator, integrating Alexa and Cortana. And when we put this at a trade show recently, the amount of excitement, think of Star Trek, where Captain Kirk would get on and say, bridge, and the elevator would just take him to the bridge. And, the idea of going into an elevator and say, take me to Mr. Smith's office, instead of having to remember, is Mr. Smith on the 7th floor, the 12th floor? So it's things like that start making the ride a little more fun and more seamless. That's where we're going.
Have you actually tried out Madame A or Cortana in that sort of situation? I just feel like it would be super awkward to be shouting out, take me here, take me there, take me to my divorce lawyers. I don't know.
So we've done a demonstration at a big trade show. and got a lot of interest. You're right. There are believe it or not, developers were the most interested, but particularly they saw an initial application in, let's say, in a residential building. Where in a residential building, typically there's not too many people riding the elevator at one time, right? So that could be very helpful. In a commercial building where there's, 5, 12 people on the elevator at one time, you're right. I think that we have a ways to go. But, in certain applications, they can see this working out well.
Okay, cool. So let's now talk about, my goodness, how have you architected this system? It's a little nerdy, but, we talked about edge computing and we're talking about predictive analytics. I don't know what you're doing on the elevator, what you're doing in the cloud. So what does this look like from a physical and a technology perspective in a building?
So, for Otis elevators, obviously, we know the language, right, with the brain and how it talks. So for those elevators, we can pull information directly off the controller. And like I said, we put it to an edge computing device where some information is just usage, things like that. We don't have to send that up.
Does every elevator have its own device, or is it for a bank of elevators?
Yeah, the gateway can be shared amongst several elevators. There's a limit, but the gateway can be shared. But every elevator itself would have this edge device. So one edge device per elevator, but then the gateway can be shared.
Got it. Okay, so you're sending it to the gateway. Some of it goes to the cloud.
And so we send it, and in the cloud, that's where we have this data, which we can share with whatever information we need. If it's an immediate shutdown, so there's certain faults that come off an elevator where we know it's immediate, right? That, meaning this isn't going to self-heal, because we have things that it will kind of go through to try to self-heal. And that we immediately send a notification, and we actually then now inform the customer that, instead of you calling us, this is where proactive comes in, which, by the way, in the old way, 99.9% of our customers called us. A couple used an app, but they would call us and say, hey, my elevators are shut down. And we'd say, really? Who are you? Where are you? Okay, we'll send a mechanic. Well, with this, now we know when the certain fault codes are, it's a hard shutdown, and the only thing that's going to fix this is to send a mechanic. So instead of waiting, you can imagine in a building, it could sometimes hours. We've heard customers say, we just found out our elevator was down for 3 days. We now know immediately, so we can be much more proactive. So we send that edge computing says, no, this is really important information. I need to send this up immediately, and it's through APIs. We then notify different systems and say, this is a shutdown. Send a trigger to the customer. Send a trigger on our mechanic. Let everyone know that, we need to get out there and fix it. And then other information is just more, like I said, it was more kind of useful information. How many trips did it make on Tuesday afternoon? What's the most, how many trips did it make in a day? And that's information that now will help us with predictions. It will help us with estimating how long a component will last, but it's not critical information that gets passed immediately. And like I said earlier, we use cellular technology to send that information up to the cloud.
So how much data does an elevator generate, and how much data gets sent up to the cloud?
It's less than you think. In a month, probably about less than 20 megabytes. Really, it's not that much. Now, it depends on if you move into voice and video and things like that, then obviously the data is dramatically different. But when it's just regular data, just daily off an elevator, it's not a lot of data.
Okay, and so that's 20 megabytes that you're sending to the cloud, or just 20 overall?
Overall, in a month,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, man, that's much less data than I thought.
Yeah, small packets of data, yep.
I've been conditioned by the GE airplane engine examples, and I'm like, oh, that's so much information. So what other technology or IoT initiatives are you guys embarking upon?
Oh, you're welcome, Stacy. It was a pleasure. We're part of this IoT, Otis One is part of a bigger service transformation. And we started with giving all of our mechanics iPhones. We're in the process of rolling those out. So that is a platform which then we developed apps for. So, now that we have this common platform to share information with our mechanics, it makes it much easier. But I'll give you an example of one app that our mechanics really love. It's a parts app. So 165 years, you can imagine there's a lot of different elevators out there. And then, of course, all the competitors' equipment. So imagine the parts leaflets. And it literally would take sometimes hours for people to find parts. So we built an app where they can, start typing in which product they're working on or the name. I know that it's a relay. And then I know it's on this type of elevator, and then it starts sorting it for them. And mechanics are saying it's saving them a ton of time in the field, which means our customers' elevators get back up and running faster. So the Otis One and the IoT is part of a much bigger transformation, which, by the way, also involves the culture. We know that this whole transformation begins and ends with culture, and all these digitalization that we do is just to support that. So that was, I think, one piece of information I think people find interesting.
And my final question for you. Does the door close button on the elevators actually do anything?
So the answer is it depends. It does. Some buildings it doesn't, and others it does. So it really does depend. Sometimes buildings can turn it off. There's some code issues about how long an elevator door should be opened. And then some people just choose to say, no, if it's going to be open for 10 seconds, I don't want to hear it. And other times they allow it, and there's ways to use the close button. So I guess the answer is it depends.
It depends. Okay. I've always wondered. I'm like, I actually never can make it to the door open or close button on time. I go for the door open button to help people out, but I have no idea if I'm doing anything.
Stick your hand out.
Yes.
You just stick your hand out. Yeah.
If it's a good elevator, it won't chop my arm off. All right.
Exactly.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. I really appreciate it. That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.